Welcome to The Disappearing Mind, a unique podcast helping you find clarity and support along your dementia journey. Now, join National Dementia Trainer and Coach, Dawn Platt, for an all-new episode.
Welcome to The Disappearing Mind. I'm your host, Dawn Platt. I've been talking about young caregivers. I've been talking to millennials and Gen Xers. There are thousands of you out there. It is a totally different ballgame. The way you live life, the way you make decisions, and what's on your plate in life. And here we are, caregiving, something you never expected to do. If you're listening today while driving kids to school, answering emails, or sitting in the doctor's office with your mom or dad, or trying to figure out what you're making for dinner tonight, this episode is for you. I'm raising kids and caring for mom at the same time. Welcome to the podcast. More and more adults are finding themselves in a season they never expected. They're raising children while caring for aging parents. Much more common in the United States than we have ever seen before, and I do not expect this pace to slow down. One generation needs help getting started in life, and the other generation needs help holding on to the life that they have always lived. And somehow, you're standing in the middle, trying to make sure everyone is okay. Sound familiar? This is known as the sandwich generation. And if you're living it, you know how much more it is than a catchy phrase. It's emotionally exhausting. Nearly 1 in 4 American adults is now part of the sandwich generation. More than half of adults in their 40s are supporting both their children and their aging parents at the same time. Almost 70% are also working a full-time job, and they spend the equivalent of 2 full work weeks every month providing care. If that sounds overwhelming, it's because it is. Today, I want to talk about what this season feels like, what it teaches us, and how we can move through it with a little more grace. In this episode and future episodes, I will be talking to millennials and Gen Xers who are actually in this position in life. I think that their concepts, their thoughts, their holistic thinking is quite different than any generation before them. And unfortunately, a lot of the resources and training and even support that are offered really are geared to the older caregiver. I have seen millennials, and I have been told by millennials that the resources they go after are very different than the typical ones that we're used to offering. We're going to talk about this and more as we move forward on the Disappearing Mind podcast. When you become the bridge, there comes a moment when you realize that you become a bridge between 2 generations. Your children are looking up to you for stability. Your parent is looking to you for safety. And you are translating life in both directions. You're helping your child understand why grandma asked the same question 5 times. Then you're helping grandma remember which grandchild just graduated. You're helping one generation grow while helping another slowly let go. That emotional tension is something very few people truly understand unless they have lived it or are living it. That guilt lives on both sides. And let's talk about that guilt, because I think it's very common. I think the expectations on the younger person are hefty and they're weighty. And there's not a lot of historical data over the masses to really give that total guidance. I always recommend that a millennial or Gen Xer have a counselor, a pastor, a great friend, that they can vent or voice what's going on with them, because I think it's a heavy load for them. It's a different load for them than the 65, 70-year-old caregiver. But let's talk about the guilt, because there's one emotion almost every caregiver knows intimately, and that's guilt. All kinds of guilt about everything. So you may be guilty about leaving work early to pick up your children, or to take your parent to a doctor's appointment, or run by the pharmacy to pick up their medication. You may feel guilty staying at work to complete a project when you know that you need to check on your mom. Both ways, it's tugging and pulling at you and can be very overwhelming. You could feel guilty that you're missing your child's baseball game. Why? Because mom has a neurologist appointment and you've waited 8 months to get in to see the neurologist. What a stretching point in life that millennials and Gen Xers go through. Then you feel guilty leaving mom early because your daughter has a dance recital. I can feel how you're feeling, although I cannot totally relate. I'm trying to relate it to my own experience and thinking about the added stress of young children. No matter where you are in this, there's going to be guilt, and you probably are putting your best foot forward, but you always probably feel like you need to be somewhere else, right? And you can't be everywhere. Here's something I want you to hear, and I want you to think about and maybe even write down. Guilt isn't always a sign you're doing something wrong. Let me repeat that. Guilt isn't always a sign that you're doing something wrong. Usually it's the opposite. Often it's evidence that you care deeply about everyone involved. The goal isn't to eliminate guilt. It's to stop letting guilt make your decisions. You're going to make good decisions some days and not so good decisions other days. It's just part of life, and it's part of the caregiving journey. Instead, let your values guide your decisions. Sometimes you got to choose the recital, and sometimes you got to choose mom, and it is what it is. Have that flexibility and stand your ground in making those decisions. Sometimes there won't be a perfect answer. And you're not expected to have a perfect answer. After all, you didn't come born equipped to be a caregiver. And really, you probably never expected you'd be doing this. And if you did, you may not have expected it at such an early age. Only the best answer for today. That's what today's answer. This is what I'm doing today. Tomorrow, maybe I can do something different. The thing about children is children see more than we think. One of the questions I often hear is, should I shield my children from dementia? The answer is not to hide what's happening. They can deal with it. They understand. They're flexible. They're doable. The answer isn't to hide what's happening. The answer is to explain it in ways that they can understand. Children are remarkably resilient when they've been given an honest answer and age-appropriate information. My granddaughter went through this, and I think still today, even though she was very young, that she remembers her time with mom, grandma, and there were things that she couldn't ask because she was too young, but I think she knew, and I think she made allowances for mom because she just sensed it. A 4-year-old might simply need to know that grandma's brain is having trouble remembering things, where a 10-year-old may ask why grandpa keeps telling the same stories. A teenager may struggle with anger, embarrassment, or grief because the grandparent they knew is changing and they don't know what to do with it. Every age experiences dementia differently, or how they perceive it. And what children don't need is silence. Absolutely, they don't need silence. Everybody can cope with things in their own way. Silence will create fear in a child, and simple explanations will create understanding. That's really important and good advice that I'm giving you here today. I've lived it. I've seen it. and I know they compensate for dementia, and they do it quite well. Let's talk a little bit about creating memories instead of expectations. One of the greatest gifts that we can give our children is to helping them learn what relationships aren't built on, and that is perfect conversations. They're not built on perfect conversations. They're built on connections. And that's something that a child can do through interactions with someone who has dementia, whether or not they're speaking or have an intelligent conversation or not. It's about connection. It's about being together. Maybe grandma can't remember your grandchild's name or her grandchild's name, but she still smiles when they sing together. I have pictures of this happening, and it is so memorable and so rewarding. Maybe grandpa can't follow the board game anymore, but he still enjoys sitting outside watching the birds. Children don't measure love the way adults do. They're incredibly present. If we stop expecting relationships to look the way they used to, we often discover new ways to connect. And this is what I see a child doing when given the opportunity, is they're resilient and they just enjoy the interaction. Some of the most meaningful family moments become the simplest ones, like listening to music, looking through old photographs, baking cookies, watering flowers, holding hands. Presence becomes more important to children and to the person with dementia than memory. They know how they feel. They know how you make them feel. It's a win-win situation. Let's talk a little bit about another side that we don't often talk about, and it can produce stress. And that's protecting your marriage while caregiving. Because of the draw in caregiving, the stress level, the constant need, this could put a strain on any marriage, let alone a good one. Let's talk about something that often gets pushed aside when there's another need in the family, your marriage or your closest relationships. Caregiving has a way of consuming every conversation. You really tend to talk about caregiving because that's what you're doing with so much of your time. Schedules, appointments, medication, insurance, safety concerns, the home health nurse coming to visit, all of those things have to be navigated. Eventually, couples begin functioning like project managers instead of partners. That is real common. I have seen that a lot in my career and in my personal life. If you're not intentional, your relationship slowly becomes another casualty of dementia, especially if you're the sandwich generation, because that can happen with children. But when you add caregiving on top of children, it's something that you really need to protect and guard. Protect your marriage, schedule time together, talk about something other than caregiving, laugh as much as you can, go to dinner, take a walk, play games, whatever it is that brings you joy. Remember who you were before dementia entered your family and try and touch and preserve some of those areas of your life. It's going to be very beneficial in the long run. And those moments aren't selfish. I think a lot of times we guilt ourselves into believing that wanting time for ourselves is taboo, and it actually is not something. It's something that's incredibly important. And caregivers who do that are better caregivers because they're balanced in their stress level and they're balanced in their thinking, and they're necessary. Take those moments. The other thing I like to talk about is give yourself permission to ask for help. It takes a long time for people to ask for help sometimes. It's one of the biggest mistakes I see. People wait until they're drowning before asking for help, and then they become the victim. Please don't wait. Please don't not accept a meal when somebody offers it. Even if it's not the meal of your choice, you don't have to make it. Let someone pick up your kids if it's a trusted friend. Ask a sibling to make a phone call instead of you having to wait on hold for an hour to get information or to call in a prescription or whatever the case might be. Hire help if financially possible. Even if it's somebody that comes a couple days a week and sits with mom or dad or takes them for a walk, whatever it is, it gives you that time. You can look forward to it every week. Reach out to a support group. If you're a millennial or Gen Xer, I understand that there's a lot of millennials on Reddit, and there are a lot of other online platforms that millennials go to talk about their age group and caregiving. I'm going to get into that on a future podcast with a millennial who knows a lot about that. And I think that's incredibly important. Talk to your peers, talk to your age group. You understand one another, and you're going to be able to talk about some similarities that are really important. Wise people build teams. Give yourself permission to have outlets. Give yourself permission to do some of these things that I've listed, because in the end, they are going to be your saving grace. And if you have family members who will come and sit or will come and do some time with your loved one, take advantage of it. As a matter of fact, ask for it and let them know, listen, every other weekend, I need my weekend. I need some time. I need time with my kids, time with my family, all of it. Ask for it. Reach out. Get that help. There are 5 things I hope you remember. And number 1 is your children are learning compassion by watching how you care for your parent. I think that that's critical for you to know. They're going to remember how you cared for them. Not that you were perfect, but the fact that you contributed to their life. Number 2, you cannot be everything to everyone every day. If you set that expectation, you are going to fail, because we're individuals, we're humans, we're vulnerable. Do the best you can and give yourself grace. Number 3, small moments matter more than perfect ones. Listen, I remember the little things that happened the last year or 2 with my mom, the funny moments, the times that she came alive and we shared something, even though it was totally off the wall from anything she would have done before. We laughed, we joked, we kidded. Small moments matter, and they will matter in the future. And number 4, your marriage and your mental health deserves attention too. And people who do that and take the time to do that end up better caregivers and end up in better health in the end. Really, there needs to be balance. And finally, I always say this, but I truly mean it. Give yourself grace. You're trying to meet the needs of 2 generations while still remembering who you are. And that is extraordinary. Extraordinary. There are not a lot of people who can do that. So you're doing a good job. You are taking care of business. You're doing the best you can. And at the end of the day, that's what really, really matters. If today you feel like you're standing in the middle, raising children while caring for a parent with dementia, I want you to remember this. Your children probably won't remember whether dinner was homemade or takeout. We all know they prefer fast food anyway. They will remember that they watched someone they cared for care for another person with kindness. They'll remember patience, compassion, commitment, and those may become the strongest and greatest lessons they'll ever learn. Even when you make mistakes, they will remember the good days over the bad. Believe me, I know. Dementia changes families. There's no denying that. But it can also reveal extraordinary strength, deepen relationships, and remind us that love isn't measured by how much we accomplish. It's measured by how faithfully we show up for one another, just being there. Thank you for spending your time with me today on the Disappearing Mind podcast. If this episode spoke to your heart, I hope you'll share it with another caregiver who may be feeling stretched between two generations. Sometimes the greatest gift that we can give is to give someone a reminder that there are others out there just like them, that they're not alone, that we all have good days and bad days. We all have funny episodes, and we all have perhaps even gross things that we don't know how to handle or to talk about. It's a reality in dementia caregiving. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of those you love, and remember, there is hope even on the hardest days. This is Dawn Platt. Make it a memorable day.
Thank you for joining us for the Disappearing Mind podcast. We hope it's helped you find clarity and support along your journey. Be sure to subscribe to never miss an episode, visit our website to suggest future topics, and share the podcast with friends and family.